evening, and thank you for having me.
Did this come to you as a surprise in any way?
Well, I wouldn't say that it came to me as a surprise. It's something that I gotten a wind of in terms of the audit that was ongoing. All along, my concern is are we going to see a very fair, transparent process if actions were going to be taken against those who have gone against the law? Are we going to see a very fair, transparent process instead of what we saw in 2019 when there was clearly a politically motivated exercise to shut down opposition aligned radio stations?
There are many who have also said that these media houses, are expected to go according to law. And I've even heard, a former information minister say that there are quite a number of media or radio stations in Ghana, over 500. And so such moves by the NCA is helping, reduce the number of radio stations in Ghana because we have too many of them and some of them should be reduced. How do you, react to such arguments?
Well, first of all, I think when the frequencies are being issued by the NCA, I don't think that the NCA does so without knowing how many frequency authorizations have been granted. And so, for me, the problem is not about how many radio stations or a question of whether or not we should reduce them. That is for another conversation in terms of the media ecosystem, the sustainability of media, the viability of media, and so on. I think on this occasion, we are talking about regulatory compliance. And the frequency is a scarce resource, is a public resource. So if you go for a frequency, there are terms and conditions that you are supposed to abide by. And I think that as a country, we need to develop that culture of rule of law. We cannot have a situation where you go for a frequency, the authorization expires, you continue to broadcast and disregard the law about frequency authorization. As I said previously, what we had a concern with was the fact that they did it so discriminatorily, shutting down, stations that were obviously aligned to the opposition and leaving those that are aligned to the government with the same infractions to continue to broadcast. So for me, if it is done fairly, and the law is being enforced, I don't think that we have to have qualms with it. And that is why I seem to have a problem with the position taken by my very good friend, the minority leader, Honorable Alexander Fenomakin. The law, they sit in Parliament to make laws. The essential function of Parliament is to make laws. And when those laws are made, they are not just to be made for the sake of having laws passed. I think they are made to be used, they are made to be implemented, and before a law is made, it is considered that if that law is made and it is fully adhered to, it will be something that would help the development of our society. So it's quite strange that somebody would argue that yes, the law is there, those who have abused the law, let them go free. Otherwise, then we'll all jump up and then begin to grab frequencies and start to broadcast. And I don't think that we can run our country like that.
He also has a bit of political motivation or political undertone in this, because he gave examples like the Asase Radio and then Wuntumi, which is well known that it belongs to persons affiliated to the MPP, and he believes that there's some way, somehow, some political undertone in this decision to shut them down.
So that is what I've said. I when you were playing the tape, I was listening to the minister, and when the 6 stations were shut down, I had the occasion to engage with the minister. And if you look on our website, you will find that we even issued a statement saying that the new government is beginning to tread on a very dangerous path of what the old regime did. And it was pointed to me clearly that there are a number of stations, that are even owned by NDC people, known NDC people. And for me, as I said, if there's a station in Pando, there's a station in Hohoi, and so on and so forth. These stations are obviously persons, that are affiliated or aligned to the NDC, one way or the other. And so, if Asase or Wuntumi has gone against the law because it is owned by Gabi and others, or is owned by Wuntumi, it should be allowed to broadcast illegally? No. But what was done previously, when Radio Gold was shut down, when XYZ was shut down, a station like Oman FM had committed the same infringement that they were allowed to broadcast. And that, for me, was the problem. If we were going by the law, let's go after all those who have abused the law. Otherwise, then let everybody, continue with impunity. And on this occasion, I think what we will be looking for is if, for example, the Honorable Minister or anybody at all is able to say, this other station is in the same category as Asase or Untumi, and yet it was not included in the list of stations that were to be sanctioned. I think that if that happens, we'll certainly have an issue with what is happening. Other than that, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it is owned by President Akufo-Addo or owned by President Mahama. If we are going by the law, let the law take its course.
An intervention has come in from the president asking that they be given some 30-day grace period to rectify all the challenges they are going through. But others will also say that a presidential intervention, if we want state institutions to work and the law to work, we do not need such intervention. We should allow the laws to work.
Well, for me, it's quite curious that the minister or the regulator, in conjunction with the minister, issue a statement suspending media organizations, and almost immediately there's another statement from the president directing the suspension of the minister's, suspension directive. It's quite curious, because I would assume that maybe before such a decision is made, the president would have been aware. But let's assume that the president wasn't aware and therefore decided that the way to go about it is to allow these media organizations some reprieve, and as was directed, the minister and the regulator should give some time for these media organizations to regularize their authorization. I think it's in good direction in terms of maybe for the first time let's do it, but I don't think that is something that should continue.
Finally, before I let you go, Suleiman, there's also the argument about putting a ceiling on the number of licenses that can be, given to persons to run radio stations and TV stations, because the argument is that if it's less, there can be proper monitoring and, proper regulation. But then, if we just open the floodgates, quite a number of, media houses, including radio and TV in this country, it makes monitoring a bit difficult for the NCA. You agree with the person who said there should be a ceiling?
Well, I wouldn't say that there should be a ceiling, but obviously the number of media organizations, currently there are over 500 radio stations on air, more than 100 television channels. Then, of course, we do have all the online media platforms, which sort of makes it difficult, not on the regulatory side, but in terms of the viability and sustainability of our media landscape. And we've all been concerned about media professionalism, independent journalism and all of that. Once you have the ecosystem that you have, independence becomes quite difficult, professionalism becomes something else, and big businesses then begin to be the ones that take over the airwaves. Right now, that is what is happening. Almost every big business owner has a radio station or a TV station. Almost a lot of MPs, a lot of political leaders have a radio station or a television station. It makes our media landscape quite cacophonous and difficult to manage. But that will require a look at the Constitution, because the Constitution says that there shall be no impediment in the establishment of a media organization. So anybody at all can decide they want to have a media outlet, and I don't think that it will be proper for the NCA to say, well, we want 100 radio stations, we've given out 100 frequency authorizations, and therefore no more. If that should happen, I think that it can be challenged in court, because as the Constitution says, there shall be no impediment. Yes, the frequencies are natural resources, very scarce, and until we say, well, it's been exhausted, it might be difficult to say you are no longer giving out frequencies. But that's a conversation that we can have.
Sulemana, thank you very much for your time. Sulemana Braimah is the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa.